So who are we? We are the Huddle Up Group. Myself, Cole McKeel, Vice President of Partnerships with the Huddle Up Group. This is John Schmieder, our CEO and founder, who's felt a little bit better in recent days. So I'm going to do most of the talking for better for worse. Originally from Paducah, Kentucky. I live in West Palm Beach now. John is born and raised in Arizona, Tucson, lives in Phoenix as well. So you can take a look about who we are. We are sport tourism lifers. We only know sport tourism, so don't talk to us about any of the other markets because we're going to make up a bunch of information if you ask us questions. But you can see we've worked pretty much around the country, over 500 destination partners. So as we're going through this process, we have a lot of data that we can pull apart from whether it's destinations similar to y'all, maybe a little bit smaller, or maybe a little bit larger as well. Myself, my background, I worked for Coach Patino at the University of Louisville on the men's basketball team. Coached basketball at the IMG Academy, worked for the Indiana Pacers and now the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, shout out. Worked for 9 years for the United States Olympic Paralympic Committee, and now I've been with the Huddle Up Group since January 2021. John, also a college basketball coach and sport tourism lifer, helped to start and found the sports commissions in Tulsa, Denver, and Phoenix. He also headed our national organization, which was known as NASC, National Association of Sports Commissions at the time. Now it's called Sports ETA. So he headed that organization twice. He always says that he failed the first time, so he had to repeat the course. But I wasn't around for that, so we'll let him tell those stories. But really what we want to be able to do is provide our assistance, our advice, our guidance, but we want to be able to pair that with data. Everything that we do, everything that we try to do, is so much better, not just being our opinion, but rather trying to tie that to the data that we're seeing from the 500 plus destinations that we're working with across the country. So this is a quick look at the sport tourism world here in the United States. You can see this is the membership from the national organization, Sports ETA. You can see 2017, it peaked about 818 member organizations. These organizations are not just destinations, but they are also sport event organizers. They're community partners, industry partners like ourselves, kind of third-party groups that work on both sides. But you can see, and the reason we put this up is to show the importance, right? And obviously sport tourism is very important, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But we want to showcase this to show you how many people and how many organizations are actually participating very actively within this sports tourism market. If you were to go off to 2025, in fact, I think we have a graph that shows 2025. We are right about that 810 level. So we've rallied back post-COVID to back where we were, and I think we're going to continue to increase. As we've mentioned, we work with about 500 cities across the country. So we have data from most of the participants in sport tourism as opposed to Sports ETA, but also a lot of destinations that are not even active in the national scene. We have a lot of background and a lot of data that we can pull from those organizations as well. So there's a lot going on this slide, but we pull this up to showcase, again, the competitive nature of sport tourism around the country, okay? So you can see, if you can decipher anything from this slide, you can see all the dots and all the circles that represent where the sport tourism destinations are here within your market, as well as the state of Arkansas, the Southeast into the Southwest, as well as the Midwest moving up as well. So extremely, extremely competitive. We have, I think there are about 14, Shelby could probably correct me, about 14 markets in the state of Arkansas alone that are very competitive and very active within the sport tourism market. But as we look around, into Oklahoma, obviously into Missouri sports is one of the best sport tourism state associations that we see when we travel around and do these types of projects. Into Tennessee, Sports Illinois, again, one of the very, very best that we see across the country. So very, very competitive. So this is the process that we've taken for this project. Step one is our Sports Tourism Index, which we're going to go into detail a little bit more. It's essentially a benchmarking, ranking, and rating tool where you can really see as a market how you stack up to other markets in your state, in your region of the country, and then across the national landscape as well. So we'll talk about that. Then from there, we did an organization audit and stakeholder interviews as well. So many in the room, I know that we've interviewed either via survey or we had a Zoom or an in-person interview. So we wanted to know those initial themes, what people in the community were saying, what they felt strong about, what they felt like were opportunities, so that we could have that baseline knowledge before we came to market for the very first time. That was step 3, was our first site visit, all the way back in January, I think it was. So we came, we got to see the inventory that you have from a facility standpoint. We got to experience the local restaurants, the local hotels, to be able to draw upon what's really happening here, boots on the ground here in North Little Rock. We went back home, developed the comprehensive strategic plan, which if you have the opportunity, I think there's a QR code floating around. If you haven't gotten that yet, make sure that you see Heather so that you can get a look at that final copy, which is about 60 pages or something like that. If you need some good bedtime reading, it's a perfect time to do that. You'll go right to sleep, I promise. But about 60 pages of data that goes into this. So what you're seeing today is literally just the 30,000 foot level. You can see all the actual data and recommendations that we have into that. So here we are in step 5, second site visit and the final presentation. And then we'll have a follow-up call about a month from now where we'll go through, had the tires hit the road? What sort of traction are we getting? What sort of feedback and static are we getting so that we can continue to be a part of this community even when we're long gone? So some quick research action items. This is what we did. We had 9 phone Zoom interviews with stakeholders that were provided to us from North Little Rock Tourism. 26 electronic survey responses. Obviously, the in-person town hall we did the very beginning. Tours of 17 current and potential sport and event venues. Okay. What we're trying to do through this whole process too is we like to think a lot of us like to think very specifically into sport tourism, bat and ball sports, traditional team sports. What we're trying to do and what we have event organizers in is trying to broaden that landscape. How do we take advantage of maybe non-traditional sport venues as well as our traditional sport venues so that we can think broader and we can make sure we're targeting as many different sport activities as we possibly can. Benchmarking against high-performing destinations, we're going to go really deep into that here in this talk. Competitive analysis against best-in-class venues. And then lastly, a rating of the organization through the Sports Tourism Index, which John is going to talk to you about right now.
Good morning. So Cole's been with us for almost 5 years, and that's the first time he's ever done the intro. Let's give Cole a round of applause. He said I'm not Bill and I'm not, but he said, hey, I've seen this enough times. I can do this. So awesome. Thanks for that, Cole. So again, John Schmieder, founder and CEO of Huddle Up Group. So about 8 years ago, we created a benchmarking tool called the Sports Tourism Index. And the reason we created it, because the Karens of the world were telling us, hey, on the meetings conventions side, I know what I have. I have a convention center, I have a hotel package, I have an airport lift, all those things. So I know I compete against whoever, right, based on those things. On the sports side, there was no such tool. And so the Karens of the world kept saying, we need a benchmarking tool, we need a benchmarking tool. So we heard it so many times, since one didn't exist, we went and built it. And we built the index, and I'm going to show you your data. There's some data people here, so hopefully you're going to love this part. We built this platform for the sole reason to be able to benchmark one destination against another. And as Cole mentioned earlier, okay, who do we look like today and who do we aspire to be? So we're going to show you some of that as well. So the index has 450 some destinations have gone through it. Thank you to staff, Shelby, and the team for going through that. I know it's painful. The back end of the index has 1,900 different data points on it. And you don't have to answer 1,900 questions, thank God. But you have to enter things about, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, you have to enter things about your facilities and your destination and all those other things. But there's nowhere in there where you can say North Little Rock's awesome and I should get extra bonus points because we have a cool brochure and some new hotels, right? It doesn't do that. It's black and white. It's how many fields, do they have lights, right? It's how many hotel rooms, restaurants, attractions, what's your airport lift and all these things. So when we built the index, we surveyed over 100 event owners, and we asked them, if you're going to pick North Little Rock versus, we're working in Fort Smith right now too, versus Fort Smith versus Tulsa, where I ran the sports commission, versus these other places, Why are you going to pick one destination over another and put your event there? And their answers are the 4 buckets across the bottom, right? So facilities are king. We all know that. So we're going to get deep into that. The destination itself, can we get there by plane, train, automobile? Does it have the hotels, restaurants, attractions? If we win the 8 o'clock game in the morning, we don't play till 4, are there things to do, right? It asks all those questions. Organizational structure, do we have budget? Do we have volunteer pool? Do we have the ability, as we like to say, to put on our backpacks and help the event organizer outside the lines, right, operate the event so they can focus on the championship at hand and don't have to deal with all the other stuff, referee, hospitality, those types of things. And then lastly, what's the event history of that organization and the destination? So I always use Cal Ripken. He's a client of ours, Cal Ripken Baseball. So Cal's a little bit different in a very good way. The way they run their championships is different than the other baseball and softball organizations out there. If you build if we go out to Burns Park and we build the nicest diamond complex on the planet, right? Cal does not want to be the first one to come there. He wants you guys to do Triple Crown Sports and USSSA and Dixie Baseball and all the others. And once you get experienced in operating diamond sports, they'll come teach you what they call the Ripken way, right? Which is different. So all that said, those are the 4 buckets. You can get up to 25 points in any of the buckets, 0 to 100. Before I show your data, I'm going to tell you, my folks were educators when I was a kid. It's not 90s an A, 80s a B, 70s a C. It doesn't work like that, right? So when you see your numbers, don't worry about it because a couple of them are low. But the highest score I think we've ever seen is Palm Beach, who's won Sports Commissioner of the Year 1 million times. They have a $10 million budget. And on the beach, great destination, right? And their score is like in the 70s, right? They're the best one we've ever seen.
Yeah, this is your freshman econ course, 65 is an A, we're curved trying to get to the point. So, yeah.
Okay, so here are the 4 buckets down the left. Here's your data. Here's the overall average for the other 450 destinations that have gone through this. Here's Southeast, which you fall in our tool, our platform, and then under 500,000 population, right? Now, 39 is actually very good. It's a really good score, right? You're in the upper half. So you're in probably the second 25 percentile. The good thing is your facility score is excellent. The one thing that we usually in this process cannot positively affect is the destination strength, because your airport's not going to change. Your hotel inventory is not going to change overnight. I know you have some new ones coming online and I already had some. You get in this, I use Baton Rouge all the time. LSU doing 8 home football games a year, where they get 100,000 people that come with or without the tourism authority involvement. You actually get points for that in our tool. So it's not like a Division I university. It's not like the Razorbacks are going to land on top of you, right? So that one we can't change. The good thing is the other 3 we can change in this process, and they're all interrelated. If we invest in organizational activity, if we invest in the backpacks, if we invest in marketing budget, if we invest in human capital, if we invest in facilities, which we're going to talk about, the event number will come up, right? And the goal from the beginning of this has been, let's get the events back to where they were before the tornado, right? Because that really set us back a big way, because your facilities went offline for a long time, right? So take a peek there. Again, your numbers are actually really good. So we're dealing from a position of strength. But again, as Cole pointed out, all your neighbors are investing in infrastructure. They're investing in people. They're investing in new facilities, right? Our Fort Smith project, I think a new indoor facility is going to come out of the ground there with the help of some of the Bentonville folks too, investing in that. So they've got a lot of communities around just Fort Smith that are investing in Fort Smith right now.
We were actually talking yesterday too. There's about 150, I believe I'm right on that, Heather. There's about $150 million just with a, close proximity around you all in terms of sport tourism investment right now that's going on right now. $150 million.
So again, as Cole mentioned, we're really anal about data and benchmarking. So every couple of years, we interview about 300 event owners, and we ask them, again, okay, if you're going to put your event in a destination, what are you looking for? And there's really 3 answers. One is, I'm not going to buy that at all. That's not up here. The second one is tournament friendly, which is defined as, hey, we can host a lot of the local, regional, statewide stuff, but if we're going to do something big, we're going to have to cobble together multiple facilities, right? Which is not ideal. Event owners don't want to have to manage 3 different venues at one time. They don't want to be in their basketball tournaments. They don't want to be in 5 high school gyms and 4 middle school gyms and a Parks Place and the Y. They don't want to manage people in all those places. It's not a great experience for the families and the athletes either, right? If I win the 8 o'clock game and now I have to go play noon across town somewhere else, right? They don't want to do that. So that's tournament friendly. Anchor facilities is what they're looking for. That means the Cal Ripkens of the world, they want to have all the venues, the entire venue, the entire tournament in one place at one time. So one gate, one location, they can manage referees, volunteers, the coaches, the teams in one place. Cal Ripken's folks, if you don't have, I kind of joked about the building a mega facility for them. If you don't have 12 fields that meet their specs in one place, they're not going to return your phone call. Right? That's how serious it is. And the good thing is you have a couple facilities. So we added, Kevin on our team's our data guy. He added this column to show this is where we are with the best assets we have now. Right? So you can compare, you can see, Burns Park has a bunch of fields. That's great, but it has a really lacking infrastructure. Right? So beyond this, I could put up a whole nother chart, and there is one in the playbook, the report, we call it the playbook. My dad was a football coach, I can't help it. But in the playbook, there's actually a secondary chart that shows the actual amenities that we need on top of the field count. Is it ADA compliant, permanent Wi-Fi, permanent restrooms? Does it have LED lighting, like all that stuff, right? And where you stack up among that. But just on a pure field count, obviously Burns Park is the major asset. And you can see here where we stand on those. You pick your favorite sport. My son's 9. He's going to be a pretty good baseball player, I think. So I always use the diamond capacity. And obviously even at Burns Park, we're lacking the number of fields we need, let alone the infrastructure part, with the parking and the Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. All right. So the cool thing about the index data is we can now, since we have 455, I think last I looked, destinations that have gone through it, we can actually show you and show Karen's team who we are today and who we look like, and then who we want to be down the road, right? And then the playbook, it actually takes suggestions from this bottom group, who we aspire to be, and says, here's what works in their playbook, and let's go borrow those for North Little Rock, right? So Lynchburg, Macon, great destinations. We worked with both of them. College towns, both of them. They look a lot like you on the data. So if I go back to that chart, their chart looks just like yours. Their numbers in all the 4 buckets looks just like yours. And their structure is very similar to yours, right? But who we aspire to be, the next group up, I can't show you their data, but I'm just telling you, they're in the next group up from that 39 score. They're in that 40 to 50 range. Our Fayetteville, Gwinnett, Georgia, who we love Gwinnett. Their team there is great. Huntsville, very entrepreneurial group there. And then Tuscaloosa, obviously another college town. So, and in the playbook, when you see it, whether you know it or not, some of our recommendations are based on those 4 destinations, right? So initial themes, we had this up last time we were here. So those of you that were in our original presentation, sports tourism is key to economic development. If that wasn't true, we wouldn't be standing up here in the first place. It's obvious, right? Cole talked about regional competition. One thing we didn't do in that map, I know it hurts your head. The map is crazy. That's why we don't leave it up for very long. All the states that were highlighted in a color, they have state tourism groups, right? And yours is pretty new. You're just getting started on that. But also, we didn't highlight the ones above you, except for Oklahoma. Everybody around you has a state tourism group. Oklahoma is the only one that doesn't have one, right? And having been in Tulsa for 5 years, Tulsa is very competitive with the other folks down the road. So I don't think they're going to have one. But all of them, they share leads, they market together, they go to national conferences together. They make sure that, hey, if Springfield, Illinois can't host it, why can't DuPage County next to the airport, right? And they make sure that it's not going out of Sports Illinois, right? If they can. We got great feedback on the CVB and hospitable community with staff. Location's great. You've got a great track record of hosting events in the past, again, pre-tornado mostly. Existing facilities, we're going to talk about that a lot, need some TLC, if you will, to keep up with that $150 million of your neighbors that is going in. And then we got to keep being more externally focused. Let's not just answer the phone. Let's engage you all in this room on a regular basis. There's 3 pages in the playbook about how we engage staff, how we engage these people, right? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but literally things that I used when I was in Karen's seat, as Cole mentioned, Tulsa, Denver, Phoenix, and things we've seen our clients use about how to keep you all engaged. And it's a great turnout this morning too. So thanks for your time. And so when you read the playbook, it gets really, and this presentation, it gets really wide, right? Think about it as like an inverted pyramid. We've already talked about the national landscape, the competition, and now we're going to get closer and closer and get really granular all the way down to this is what we would do tomorrow in this market, right? So we're just starting that here. So it has a SWOT analysis, and then it has recommendations we're going to cover in a moment. And then we're going to literally tell you guys what we would do if we were you, right? So your location's great. again, event hosting history, good leadership in the community. We had really positive feedback from the Zoom interviews and those things. We think you're on the same side of this thing. Your funding's strong and diversified. You have multiple things that pay into what tourism budget looks like, which is rare. Usually it's just bed tax. You have multiple channels.
Just really quickly, from a leadership standpoint too, there's an overarching sentiment here. People are really proud of North Little Rough, which is not always the case with everywhere we go. But it seems to be, and this is very common, that everyone is kind of, pulling in their own direction. While there's a lot of pride here, there's a lot of connected tissue, we feel like that can get better. And when that gets better, through some of the recommendations that we have, that's going to continue to strengthen so that people don't feel defeated because they're trying to do their own part, but they can't see the bigger picture around it. So that's something that's really intentional, but being able to start in a place like you are right now is a great thing, because sometimes it is completely opposite and it's pulling teeth trying to get everybody to play nicely together.
A lot of times we're called in to referee relationships, which has not been the case here, which is good. Weaknesses, some of the facilities, again, need some investment. Not just Burns Park, but some of the others we saw. Funding allocation, obviously we put a lot of tourism dollars towards facilities the way it's set up now. So we want to make sure that those are put into making those anchor facilities or tournament friendly venues, right? And bringing them up to code. Great opportunity at your tennis complex, by the way. Is our tennis guy here? There he is. He gave us a whole sheet of things that we need to upgrade at the tennis facility, including potentially an indoor paddle type facility with pickleball and these other things. You've obviously have a new pickleball facility you showed us when we were there several months ago. Great opportunity there.
That was the best response we've ever had, by the way. It was like, all right, if you wanted to do something, what would you do? And he's like, here's the document.
Here's the sheet.
It was great.
So low hanging fruit, we think. So that there's a whole section on that in the playbook. Great event opportunities to host more events, local partnerships. And then we need to get more externally facing in the marketing side. We're not doing as much as our neighbors as far as trade shows, familiarization tours. So we're going to get into that in a moment. For us, we've already talked about competitions. The flat fields at Burns need to be reinvested in. That's your major tournament asset that you have right now. And then making sure we are all rowing the boat in the same direction, right? To take from that Central Michigan coach. We want to make sure we're all aligned on what we're looking to do and what success looks like. One of the challenges that we experienced here is we don't really know what a home run looks like, right? So if you don't know what success looks like, how do we know when we get there, right? Or if we fall short, we don't really know. So we there's pieces in the playbook, again, defining how to do that. So in the playbook, there's primary recommendations. These are more short-term because these are organizational. The secondary ones are bricks and mortar. They're facility-driven because anything we want to do facility-wise takes more time. Right? Whether it's investing in the facilities, finding money for that. We talked about the arena the other day. The NCAA has already told us that what they would do with the arena. So they gave us their own list of things they would want to improve. That takes time and money and those types of things. So these are the organizational ones. So funding wise, we want to make sure that anything we invest in facilities or in other entities that drive tourism, that we're investing in the things that will then eventually be able to host events. Right? So we want to be very specific about how those funds are used. So we want to redefine how those funds are invested. And again, what's a home run? What's a win for those funds, right? Client engagement, externally focused. I'm going to talk about that in the very last slide about how to do some of that. We need to, again, be more externally facing and also externally facing in the community with you all, strengthening our stakeholder engagement, which are most of the people in this room, right? Secondary are, again, facilities, longer term. Right. So we want to enhance our existing venues, mostly Burns and some others. The paddle facility, I think, could be really cool if we had an indoor pickleball / tennis facility bigger than what's there now. Number two is something we stole from my old board chair in Phoenix. We want to have what we call favored nation status with the facilities, which means we want to have booking priority. And usually the only way to do that is when we invest in a facility or we invest in parks or arena or whatever it may be, we want to paper up an agreement that says this is what we get out of it, right? From the tourism perspective, this is a tourism activity. Now, one thing I always say, and I don't want to miss it, is yes, we're tourism people and this is about sports tourism, but hey, anything we invest in, our kids get a better place to play too, right? And our clubs build capacity to have more kids and more teams, and we don't have to go to Fort Smith to play in the tournament. We can have it here. Right. And that's what we're shooting for. So we don't miss on the kids either. but we want to have favored nation status. And usually, like in a university setting, I know we're not talking about a big university right now, but in a university setting, usually it's intercollegiate athletics gets first right of the venues, right? Second is intramurals, then the rec leagues, and then maybe some graduation stuff, and then tourism's way down here, right? We want to be right behind intercollegiate athletics in that example. We want to be intercollegiate athletics and then tourism and then the rest. And the way to get there is usually by helping invest in the facilities, and then we paper up an MOU that says this is what we get out of the deal, right? Same thing with parks. If we invest in parks, we expect that we would have first access to the calendar, even though generally parks is, and I'm speaking to some of the folks on the board, generally parks is for a community, right? But if we're investing tourism dollars in it, we have to have a tourism priority. We want favored nation status to book events.
And
right?
typically what that looks like is sport tourism on the weekends and community use during the week. And it's not always structured that way, but that seems to be typically how the cadence goes. But with sport tourism on the weekends too, your local teams get access to those tournaments. So they get a chance to play here in North Little Rock as opposed to going somewhere else.
And the last one, we put in almost every one of these playbooks. We put in developing a facility master plan for the region. Could be just the city. It could be across the river too. It's up to you all. Most of the destinations don't do it. It's a lot of work. But we do like to suggest it. So if you do that, then you actually want to make sure we don't build redundant facilities or we don't invest in redundant things with our neighbors, right? In the example, I put pools up here. Pools does not apply to here. That's a reminder to me to tell a story. So we work really closely with folks in Treasure Coast, which is just north of where Cole lives in Florida. And Treasure Coast Sports Commission covers 3 counties just north of West Palm Beach. And what the 3 counties did, unbeknownst to each other, is they all went out about 10 years ago and they all built an Olympic-sized pool, right? Olympic pools cost a lot of money to build and a lot to upkeep, right? And the challenge they have now is that when the Sports Commission goes out and bids on an event or brings an aquatics event to one of those counties, the other 2 get mad because they say, well, why is it in my pool, right? The reality is, had they communicated with each other with a regional facility master plan, one of them would have built a pool, one of them would have built a tournament-ready, an anchor facility for diamond sports, and one of them would have built a soccer complex. That would have been smart. Instead, they all built the same exact thing. And our friend Rick Hatcher runs the Sports Commission there. He's refereeing these fights. Every time his team, his sales team goes out and they bring in a water polo, U.S. water polo event or an NJCAA swimming championships, the other 2 counties are mad that didn't get it, right? And he's in the middle of all of it, poor guy. He also led our Sports Tourism Association back in the day.
So think about that from a destination standpoint, which their destination is huge. It's a really, really big county or area. So then what we want to be able to do, we mentioned our Sports Tourism Index. We have about 8,500 different sports-specific facilities around the country that we have access and have the data to. So we want to make sure that not just within North Little Rock or Little Rock, but we want to go wider than that to make sure that if you do invest, that you're doing so differently than what your neighbors are doing down the road. That's really, really important. And we're trying to get in for a lot of states from the state tourism perspective to say, if someone comes to you and says they're going to develop a facility, try to give them some guardrails around what's already being invested into. We mentioned $150 million being invested around this area. We need to make sure that we're not trying to duplicate the same thing that our neighbors are doing. And so we want to make sure we're very locked in on that as well.
So more data for our data people. So we actually subscribe to an entity called ESRI. ESRI measures activity, what people in this room do in a certain activity. We could literally ask ESRI how many people in this room had a Big Mac in the last 3 days, right? I mean, it's deep. But
you don't have to raise your hand.
You don't have to raise your hand, no. On the sports side, it has about 30 sports it measures, sport activities. And what we're fishing for, again, no pun intended, what we're looking for here is this is a 2-hour drive. 2-hour drive on the left, 4-hour drive on the right. We're looking for how many people within the drive radius, because our industry, sports tourism, is largely drive radius now. Even pre-pandemic, the national championships were turning into drive market events versus putting people on a plane. And since the pandemic, a lot of parents don't want to put their kid on a plane, still to this day, right? So what we're looking for is what kind of sport activities would be successful in North Little Rock, right, within that drive radius. And in the playbook, it has 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour, whatever that Kevin does for us. We just put up 2 of those here. So outdoor stuff, hunting, fishing, target shooting. And then when we get down, anything, let me explain. So the index, it's an index data. So anything 100 of whatever activity you're asking, Big Macs or sports, whatever you're asking, could be concerts. We have a concert one I think we might show. Anything at 100 is average for the entire country, right? Anything that indexes above 100 means that activity is done more here than anywhere else, right? Anything in like the 110s is off the charts. 120s and 30s is unbelievable.
Yeah, we never see numbers that high.
If we put on a fishing event here, right, the number of fishermen is higher here than elsewhere by 20-something%. And if we were going to do a ticketed event, like an NCAA championship at the arena, for instance, we could ask it, okay, from a basketball perspective or a volleyball perspective, how many fans are there within our drive market that are going to buy tickets and come watch it, right? Where are we going to be most successful with investment in those events? So if we get really granular, right, on what events we want to go bid on, this chart will help. Like I did not anticipate archery to be above 100, right? I would pick that. We did one of these last week. I can't even remember what market we were in, Iowa somewhere. And literally they had like Frisbee was like 125. And I'm like, we need to call our boys at Ultimate Frisbee and get them out here, right? That type of thing. So pick out your favorite sports.
So one thing to note too, how much salt water is in North Little Rock?
Yeah, 0.
Maybe somebody has a pool in their backyard. I don't know, probably. So this keeps in mind that this is what participants, people in this area, what they like to do. It doesn't necessarily mean they do that here within market. It just means that they like to do that in general, right? So it's not necessarily that it's under indexed versus the rest of the country. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what people are not doing, but they have to drive to go do that. They can't necessarily do that unless they're fishing in someone's backyard, right?
So I would get on the phone with USA Shooting, Archery, and the American Darters Association tomorrow because their numbers are all up. And you can use the data and say, our numbers show that you're going to be successful here, right, when you bring your event. And then in a little bit further out, you can see some of them change. Archery goes up even higher as we get into a bigger drive radius, right? And darts is about the same. The rest of them about the same. Anything below 100 means in this drive radius, whatever one we're measuring, below 100 means we're less than average for the United States. That makes sense, right? So for me, the data points out, as I just mentioned, archery, darts, and target shooting. So USA Shooting in Colorado Springs, right?
It's not all encompassing as well. We just did a report or project in Minnesota, and we were going through, what would you think is the number one sport in Minnesota? Fishing, another one.
Ice hockey.
Hockey, right? So people are like, whoa, hockey's not on, it's not on here. Esri doesn't have hockey data, so again, it's not completely all-encompassing. There will be some things that are a little bit odd, but just wanted to point that out too. There are other areas that we can look at. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to look at this list completely, but it gives us a good guideline to be able to start.
So we asked about attending events, right, versus participating in them on the previous slide. So you can look here again, high school sports, big in Arkansas. Country music, big, not surprising. R&B and rap, I was a little surprised about that, being right on the average in this market. I know Tulsa's number is much lower than that in my time there. Youth sports, a little bit lower on average. We actually just did a project in Nevada, and in Mesquite and simultaneously Laughlin, Nevada. If you're not familiar, Mesquite is on the Utah border to the east of Las Vegas, about an hour east of Las Vegas. Laughlin is an hour southwest of Las Vegas on the Arizona-California border, right? And their numbers on concerts, they both do a lot of concerts and music festivals. Their numbers are diabolically different, 100 miles apart. Like one of them is big country and the other one's big gospel, and one of them's big in rap and the other one's not, right? So it just depends where you're at, and how far deep we can dive, even if you want us to dive further into special events and Esri measures, all those types of things. All right, so we used to actually stop here and take questions. We're going to do that in a minute. And then a few years ago, our friends at USA BMX, we did a project with them, and their CEO, Bernard Anderson, BA as he's known, said, "This is great, John. I got a 20-slide presentation. I got a 60-page playbook. If you were me, what would you do right now? Boil it down for me." And so we added a slide. It's called King for a Day. So Cole and I were king for a day in North Little Rock. This is what we would do right now, walking out the door today. The capital improvement plan, especially with the investment we make with parks, we want to review that and say, okay, again, what's a home run for parks and for us, right? We want to go through that. We would create a sports advisory board. So all the people we interviewed, the stakeholders, they're like, there's a lack of, as Cole mentioned earlier, connected tissue, between them. We don't have to go launch a whole new sports commission and a whole new organization. We just need a group of the sports people in one room at one time on a consistent basis, right? So they can communicate with each other, if nothing else, right? Underneath that, one of the things we can ask them to do is help us with the regional facility plan. So Parks has its plan, high school probably has theirs, colleges have theirs, your friends across the river probably have their own, right? But nobody's communicating with each other. So we don't have the redundant investment happening. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So we can put the facility master plan as a task, if you will, to that group. Sales missions, which is outbound, usually to Colorado Springs, all the Olympic people are, Indianapolis, where another group of event owners are. Usually every other year, destinations or your state sports group, right, will go and do sales missions to one or the other. Most of the state groups alternate. They'll go to Colorado Springs one year, Indy the next year, because you can't do them both every year all the time, right? And then an inbound familiarization tour, whether that's a statewide event, like we've been doing a lot of those lately for different state groups like Sports Wisconsin last week. Cole was there. But you need to get people here. You need to show them Burns Park. You need to show them the arena, right? They need to see it. And you need to talk to them about the investment that's going in around the arena too, right? Multiple hotels, conference center going in that'll support it, those types of things. You need to start storytelling to those people.
It's amazing too. Like, we do a lot of familiarization tours. We were just in Wisconsin, as John mentioned last week. It's amazing once you get people to your community, how invested they feel into the pride that they feel, that you all feel about North Little Rock, they'll feel as well. So that's a really important piece, is to get them here, because we really believe if you can get them here, they want to come back.
And specifically, if we're going to continue to invest in, let's say, Burns Park, right? If we're going to do that, we want to get the event owners to come and see it as it is now and ask them their opinion on what they want to see later, right? And if you're a poker player, you'll understand this. If they do that, if you take their feedback and you actually execute on it, they're kind of pot committed, right? Poker term, it means they've got so much money in there, they've got to play, right? And so once we make the improvements, then they're likely to give us events and award them to North Little Rock, right? Again, engage facility leadership on the upgrades, not just facility leadership, but those stakeholders I'm talking about, those event owners across the community. And then lastly, the NCAA bid portal just opened on last Monday, right? So every 3 years now, the NCAA opens up what they call the portal. It's an online thing. God love you for having to deal with that, Shelby. But it's not a great tool. But they open up the portal, and except for baseball and softball, which are Omaha and Oklahoma City, right, and the Final Four and the football championship, all the rest of their events, divisions 1, 2, and 3, are all bid out at the same time, and it only comes every few years, right? So the bid portal is about ready to open in a few weeks, and then in like February, March, they will award about 300 events in one day, and then the portal closes for 3 more years, right? So last time around, we didn't get some NCAA championships, and the NCAA has been very forthright about why we didn't get them. So we need to literally get our friends across the river, the CVB over there, the folks over there, the hoteliers over there, our team on this side, and we need to get in one room and say, look, what are we going to go bid on? And what is really a home run for all of our communities collectively, rather than one entity bidding on one, the other entity bidding on something else, and acting independently, right? So we would form an NCAA bid committee around the portal, which opens now. Right, so perfect timing for this process to be kind of closing up because the portal is now open. So we need to get together with all of our friends and our neighbors to do that. With that, questions for John and Cole?
North Little Rock, who has a great team to work with, and we work with a number of cities on our events, and Karen and her team are great. I think they get A+s in all of those. Just the fact that they would hire a company like yours and the thought that you had put in it is great. So I appreciate all that. So just to be helpful, some feedback on what my wife and I do is softball and baseball.
Some point.
Yeah. So we had an adult softball event at the county for 46 years that draws teams from, 14 or 15 state area. 46 years of doing it. And so that's an adult softball event. And we also do a youth softball baseball event that we've done for about 10 years. And so one thing I didn't see in the data, and maybe it's there because I know there's a lot more than what you showed us today, is the size of the sport and travel squad that it creates. So all I can talk about is our little world, but the fact that a softball team is 10 players actually on the pitch, and then your subs and your coaches, and for adults, That's a travel squad of about 30 people when you consider the people that travel with the players and coaches. And for youth, it's about 40 people when you consider all of what youth sees bring. So I just think considering the size of the travel swath, you're talking about tourism, and as a city who is looking at limited funds and say, where can we spend our money the smartest, I think that that's something that ought to be considered, is the size of the travel squad.
We have a whole nother presentation we do at some of the national trade shows about data-driven decision-making in sports. And we talk a lot about the data around participation, and not only between boys and girls, but the travel numbers between the two. So I didn't bring any T-shirts or anything to throw. I usually throw them out. So if my son's 9, I mentioned earlier, Brock. So when my son goes to his first baseball tournament in Las Vegas here in about 6 months, right? How many people are getting on that team bus for my family to go with my son? 18, and this is from AAU, Amateur Athletic Union, 18 and under, all sports. But I'm just going to use my son as an example. So when my son gets on the bus, how many people in my family are going with him? 6.9 boys. Now, if my son was a girl, how many people are getting on that bus? 3.2. Do we want to be in the girls' business or the boys' business? Right? And we have a chart. It's not up here. But we have another in that presentation. We have a spending chart from friends of ours that run a major housing company, Event Connect out of Canada. The guys are crazy, but they're great, and they're data junkies like us. So they actually share with us every year. They give us the team sports. They give us which team sports spend the most, book the earliest, travel in biggest packs, right? So if I were to put all the team sports up on this chart, up on the screen, who do you think spends the most and travels the best? Somebody said cheer and dance, right? We're going to clean that glitter up all day long for that business. They literally travel. When they book on the hotel side, when they qualify for a cheer event, they book immediately. So their average booking for cheer and dance is 6 months out from the event. So any hoteliers in here, right? Hoteliers, so they book early, right? They're used to paying more. And the data also shows that the girls are more likely to make it a playcation and come early and stay late than the boys, right? And Cole mentioned we're both past basketball coaches. Who's at the bottom of the list? Boys basketball, right? And you know what happens when you hoteliers are getting ready to drop your block, that's when they're calling for their rooms, 30 days out. And cheer and dance, 180 days out.
Not to mention the girls are probably not getting kicked out of the hotel for doorbell ditching and all the other things that kids like to do.
I worked at Pop Warner for a couple of years, and when I was there, our championships were at Disney. And every time we had a problem at Disney and had to escort teams off the property because of Disney rules, it was always the boys. Every time. And we had cheer and dance there too. We had football and cheer and dance at the same time. It was never the cheerleaders, right? It was always the football players. Always. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier there's some hard breaks that we can't control it, right? I know one is the fact that we don't have flights leaving out of the airport late enough for tournaments to finish on late Sunday evening, whatever. What are some other hard breaks that are really going to be obstacles for us to overcome? Because I don't think that we are going to be able to overcome that, at least, from internal.
Yeah, flight lists are tough. I mean, that's a whole nother ball of wax. It's not in our bailiwick.
I would say this too. When I worked at the Olympic Committee living in Colorado Springs, we were United sponsored. Guess what the most popular airline out of Colorado Springs was? United. I mean, right? That's a very long-term play. It's not to say that we build something today and airport starts to get bigger, but over a long-term play, yeah, it can get there. So if we can focus on the other three, then we'll continue to invest in that destination strength as well.
So I circle back to flat fields, but that's what we do and what I know. So I would just be interested in y'all's feedback on two areas. One, if you look at the caloric and 12 fields contained in one area. Very few cities had that. I'm not aware of any in Arkansas that have 12 in one area. Now, you can say there's 17 fields in Birch Park, but they're split up in different areas, and some can't be used, between the various baseball and softball because of the size of the field. So to have 12 fields contained is a tournament event creator's dream because you can contain it all within one facility. And so that's part of it. And what is the even possibility? Because that's a lot of money and a lot of work. Burns Park is a great place, by the way. Everybody knows where it is. It's historic, So if you can have something like that in Burns Park, it will just be a dream. The second part of it, though, that I think, as I talk to a lot of them all over the country, because I'm in a big organization, the second thing that baseball and softball people are looking for is turf. And so what is your opinion on the turf? Because, again, you can plan this great event, have teams coming from all over the country, and then Mother Nature intercedes that are in a world of trouble where the turf kind of saved your bait in there a little bit.
I'll start with
So the size, how do we get Burns Park into that kind of a possibility, A, and B, what's your attitude about turf?
So let me jump in here. Mr. All right? Yes, sir. Okay, so I'm aware that Montvale by now is looking at sponsoring a bond issue to their soccer fields and their other fields, right?
Right.
And I'm like, man, that upsets me because, Burns Park will lose out once again to these other facilities. Searcy is getting ready to do their fields in turf, right? Right? So Hot Springs and Conway both have softball fields with turf, right? At least adult. I think what I'm seeing now is that all of these places around are having the same amenities.
Right.
And, we need to stand out. So I'm thinking, well, okay, so what could Burns Park do? And I'm thinking, well, what would be different for us, I think, is turbing the soccer fields. But then I think about the floods, right? And I think that would be, that's not the smart thing to do there. I get what you're saying, but I think what we end up doing is, because I'm a baseball guy, I played softball, that burned blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I think that putting us on an even playing field to do that, and what I'm hearing from these guys, which is reluctant for me to come to terms with, is that based on the problem that they had down in Florida, we need to find something that's different, right? So we can make sure that we're the niche sport for that, whatever it is. Maybe it's tiddlywinks. I don't know. But if we have the best tiddlywinks parlor, within the region, that's what we're going to have, and that's what's going to bring in the tourism. But I think, I agree with you. I just think what's happening is we're going to be on the same playing field as, if we get turf, Montvales are going to have turf, right? So we're not going to get that an extra tournament, right?
But the things we need up there, are, like you're mentioning, we need Wi-Fi. That's something we got to get out of our park. That's a huge exodus. We have to have a playground, so when their kids are playing or they're in between, that they could go over and play. There's all kinds of things that we need.
Generally speaking, for the reasons that have been mentioned by multiple people, to answer your original question, the event owners tell us that they would like to see 25% of whatever fields we're talking about turfed from the tournament organizers in case inclement weather, those types of things, which also helps with the community user groups, right? So we can still go to Burns Park when it's really downtime and play on the turf when the grass needs to rest, right? And those types of things. So balancing, it's usually 25%. So we're talking about 17 fields, right? Do my public school math, take a quarter of that and say, if we're going to do artificial turf for multiple sports, we should do a quarter of the 17 fields.
So you don't have to do all.
No.
You have a bleed.
No. You can do what Medford, Oregon did and turf them all and be the largest turf facility on the West Coast. But not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to invest that much.
Also turfing just
Correct.
lead the outfield.
Correct. We see that a lot.
Protection from light.
We see that a lot.
But what about the size issue? Because that's where you could be different, because Hot Springs has 5 turf fields, Conway has 5 turf fields, even Jacksonville, who doesn't have turf, has a 6 field all contained, and that's the biggest one I know of. So that idea of being different, you could find a way to have even 8 or 9 fields, you would be better than any other, and that might attract some turfs. So the size is more important than a turf. And I understand your concept there, where if part of the fields are turf, you have some, protection.
Is your flexibility. Come on up. I know we're getting close to our time. I want to be respectful of that.
Hi. So some of our sales efforts currently that we have, right now we go to 3 different trade shows, sports trade shows. So we're meeting one with about 150 event owners or directors. We also have seen sales efforts in our marketing. With all these efforts, we still have a lot of time and energy into really courting and figuring out how we meet with these event owners. With our sales process, we're going to be coming out with some new marketing material, really doing all of these value-added components that they've shared with us. We really are starting to integrate them so that we're really able to move that needle.
And 2 pieces, Heather, if I may, that would really help Heather and Shelby and Karen and the team, those MOUs and the regional master plans too. The best destinations sit in front of these rights holders, event organizers, and they don't have to come back to check availability. They know their availability. They know that they can book this event as soon as they sit down. And that's great for the event organizers because they travel a lot as well, just like we all do. So trying to get them on an email afterwards or a phone call afterwards, sometimes it takes a couple weeks. And next thing you know, you've missed the bus. So those 2 things in particular are really going to help a great staff that you already have even be better.
Thank you. If there are any questions, I know we're up against time, want to be respectful of that. Any questions you didn't want to ask in front of the class, you can email us and we'll get back to you and as soon as we can.
Okay. I just want to thank you all for coming. I mean, I hope you got something out of it, and we're looking forward to you being our partners at helping us meet the deal and to move forward. And you're all wonderful. Parks Department is fabulous. Recreation as well. Our downtown, everybody, all of our hotels. So we love that you want to be a partner with us and that you want to help us be best that be. So we are totally open. Any ideas and anything that we can do. And I want to thank John and Nicole for coming and doing this for us. It was a big job, but we appreciate it very much.